KindaSound Radio. We're tuning in the change.
Good morning and happy Friday. Something a bit different today. Hi, Facebook and hi, Instagram. We're live on socials as well as live on the radio. It's very exciting. So we are bringing you the KindaSound astrology update today. As always, Friday at 10, we are here every week bringing the astrological weather for the week as well as a topic. Now, I can say this every week, and I do, but it really is a big week in astrology this week. We are talking about eclipse season for transformation. So if you miss any of these live shows, it's not to worry because the shows are always replayed, and across the whole team, all of the shows are replayed the following day at the same time. They're also soon after made available as a podcast on Apple, Audible, Spotify, and you can catch up on all those via the KindaSound website as well. So let's get into it. Eclipse season for transformation. Now, it's a really interesting thing because I think over eons, there's been a bit of a mixed vibe about eclipses. And I think there's a spectrum somewhere between deep reverence and deep fear. And I think I really want to invite us to reframe that today and look at how we can really utilize these energies. I'm going to talk about some tips as well as what's actually happening in the sky. And I've also had some info drop in yesterday that I'm going to share with you around how we can approach it from our element. So from our sign and which element that is, or you can choose any of them that resonate with you. So let's get into it. So there's absolutely no doubt that eclipses are always fated. It's intense energy, it's karmic energy. It normally brings big endings or big beginnings, something that is evolutionary to us, usually in some way. So we can see how there can sometimes be this fear energy of, oh no, what's going to happen next? Or, what's this one going to be? Or what's going to come round again? But actually, the sages and the ancient wise ones and those who really respect and have learned about what's going on in the sky and how to work from the land as well, trust that these cycles are actually really incredible portals for transformation. And that's what I want to focus on today, because we can have stuff come up and we're managing our human vessel, aren't we? We're managing our nervous systems, we're dealing with a lot. There's a busy life out there and we have stuff coming up. So we're going to talk about how to kind of navigate that today. So eclipses generally are fated and they bring a lot of big transformation, as I was saying, but this one specifically is a lunar eclipse starting on the full moon. So on the 25th, that marks the first kind of phase, if you like, the opening of the eclipse season. Now, we've been in the energy of eclipse season for the last few weeks, but it starts with the exact placement of the full moon on the 25th. So a few more days. And it's extra fated because it's the lunar eclipse and it's with the point, or very close to the point, and moving closer to the point of the south node that day on the 25th. Now, there's been a lot going on with the nodes lately. The nodes are a fascinating topic. We have a previous podcast about the nodes, the north and the south node. So if you want to dive into those a bit more, you can find that one on the KindaSound website. But why it's relevant for today as well is that where the moon is going to be full on the 25th, it's making that eclipse window open in a more open way to the south node in Libra. So both of those, so the south node is a point, it's a zodiac point, and that's in Libra, as is the full moon on Tuesday. So it's fated because the south node is all about our kind of the knowledge that we've come in with. It's karmic residue, it's past lives, it's also things we're very comfortable at, things that we know very well. It's our wisdom, it's it can be our comfort zones, but it can also be around how we've learned our deep wisdom. And we want to ideally take that wisdom and bring it forward to carry it towards our true north, which is on the opposite end of that axis, the Libra and Aries axis. So we have a lot of Aries and Libra energy going on with this eclipse and with the nodes. So the full moon in Libra on Monday, is going to be reflecting that sun in Aries. So the the kind of premise here is really about moving into a place of pure positive power in self, because that's very Aries energy. Now, the Libra energy of the full moons bring us release. So on top of the general transformation energy that eclipses bring, we've got the release of this full moon as well. So this is about clearing the decks. We want to look at, we've just come out of the last astrological year, and we're just beginning the next new astrological year with Aries. So it's a really exciting, dynamic time. And the reason I talk about it being a bit of a journey from what we know, and from with Libra, it's relationships and how we relate to another, all our relationships, to pure positive power in self, is because that's the Aries journey. And that's also the journey from the South Node in Libra to the North Node in Aries. It's asking us to take all our relationship wisdom, of course, starting with the relationship with ourselves as well, and the relationships with others, and taking that into looking at how we are solid in ourselves. Now, it's not to say all relationships will end, of course, and it's not to say, we should be ending our relationships. It's not that, but it's looking at almost like a spectrum of independence. Now, on one end of the spectrum, we might have codependency, for example, just looking at kind of how we do relationships and where we fit into this spectrum. You may have codependency on one level, on one end, where we're very much looking outside of ourselves, looking to others to validate us, looking at outside of ourselves for external validation or for resources, emotionally or otherwise, to feel better or to manage. And then the other end of that spectrum is extreme independence, where we don't let anyone help us, and we're kind of like the lone wolf, and that, and equally you have those two extremes, and we want to kind of balance ourselves. And this is a dance, isn't it? We can sometimes, any of us can kind of dance through this spectrum and kind of lean more in one side to the other. And ideally, what these nodes and what this transformational eclipse can be showing us and supporting us with is how we get a balance within our relationships to be really solid within oneself. So this is a beautiful opportunity this time, these next few weeks with eclipse season, to really look at how solid we are in our own skin, in our own confidence, in our own abilities to depend on oneself. Are we being our own best friend, or are we looking to external factors for our kind of validation and trust? Or can we really build in that, more strength and integrity in oneself? Because this is what's a really good way of utilizing Aries energy. So it's a really interesting time. We also have a real call to bravery, because Aries does things boldly, it does things dynamically, and that full moon's going to reflect that. So with the full moon, we have this real, full moons generally are about release. So we have things coming into a heightened illumination as well. We have things coming, it's at the height of its fruition. The full moon is illuminating issues in relationships. And again, this reflection, as I was saying, about relationships and self, and kind of looking at where we fit into that. So it is heightening things. So it's a time of big fruition, big energy. And it's really, really interesting. It's a call to get deep, because Aries asks us and shows us and can help us and support the energy to really step forward bravely. So this is the other thing. So where things, may feel scary, or shifts or changes are happening, Aries gives us that, not only the dynamism to be able to, kind of propel forward, but also the bravery and the courage to do so. So again, it's not about necessarily being that lone wolf, but it's about really getting brave and courageous and sturdy in oneself. So it is a call also to get deep, because with that Aries energy, we can really kind of propel forward, and it can be quite reactional. So we want to look at how we can really get deep in oneself. I've got a few tips for you for eclipse season for transformation. So this came to me yesterday when I was in my happy place. I'll share with you. I was surfing yesterday. I had the privilege to go surfing not too far from home, and it's my healing place. And I had some guidance, some thoughts, some information dropped through about these tips and kind of how we can utilize the energy for transformation. And it's an invitation to see which one resonates with you, or maybe go by your element. So whichever your zodiac sign is, if you know the element of it. So for example, I'm a Cancerian, it's a water element, no surprise, I love the water. And so for me, it was thinking about if we have things coming up with eclipse season, which could, as we were saying, things can be highlighted, triggered, things can come back round for us to look at. We can have cycles, and because there's big energies, and as we were saying at the beginning, there's intense energies. It can be beginnings or endings. So if things are coming up, you could really utilize getting deep within oneself in way of your element. So for example, with the water signs, we can access through our emotions, so there's a lot about emotions. And with water signs, they can be complex, emotionally complex. So there is those kind of depths, but it's also a real blessing because we might want to make sense of things that are coming up through feeling them. You can take any of this in terms, whatever sign you are, if something resonates, if something's niggling you, because this is the other thing about eclipses. It's like that, what's this again? That niggly bit that can come up and kind of come back round. It can be a time for shadow work or for looking at cycles. And I've had some of this stuff going on as well this week. And it's like, okay, this again. Okay, what do I need to do here? I'm going to go into the feeling of it because I'm a water sign. Right? How do I feel? And when was the first time I felt like this? So I can really go into it through feeling as well as physically in the water. For you fire signs, or if this resonates with you, it might be about getting in touch with how you're really feeling, or getting in touch with yourself through exercise, through movement, through something dynamic, through physically burning things. We might want to clear out the clutter by burning things. The full moon and the eclipse season is a great time to clear out the old. So that's a lovely one for a fire element. Air, it might be about taking time out to think things through. That air element is on an intellectual level, stimulated by, working through something with your intelligence, really looking at that mental energy of how we kind of want to navigate anything that's coming up. And lastly, the earth. Earth signs, if something's coming up with eclipse energy or with the full moon energy and things being illuminated, we might want to physically go and get our feet in the earth. That might feel really good, just moments of grounding. Bare feet on the earth or wet sand, that's really, really powerful for recharging, kind of downloading and cleansing energy and giving thanks to the earth, of course. And it's just another little selection of tools for our belts, really, for navigating this energy. So that, we could talk about eclipse season in itself all day, but there is some other things to get through, and I think we'll have a song break there. Django, shall we have some Creed with "Can You Take Me Higher"? And why I thought this song was lovely for this topic is because when a good friend reminded me of this the other day, an amazing reflexologist, Jess Chappell, Rosantha, an amazing medium as well. And she reminded me that when we really tend to our own inner world, through self-care and through building that cultivating a best friend relationship within oneself, we also go higher. We go within, but we also go into a higher energy as well. Whatever your faith or belief system is, when we access that richness in our inner worlds through any of the means that we've discussed, and you may have loads of your own things that bring you that inner richness, we also go higher as well. So I thought it was a good song choice for that.
KindaSound Radio, the station for a global community.
Welcome back to the Astrology Show with me, Stella Grace, on KindaSound Radio. We're here every Friday at 10, bringing you the latest in the astrological weather and a topic. And so far, we've been discussing some tips and some thoughts on how to navigate the eclipse season for our highest transformation, because that's the thing, isn't it? The beauty of the awareness of astrology means we get to kind of look at it with a co-creation. We get to look at it in a sense of choosing how we want to ride the energies. We want to ride them. We don't want to, be we want to go with it, and we want to have our part in the participation with these energies as well. So astrology and the awareness of it gives us a really beautiful opportunity to utilize. So this eclipse season begins mostly with the full moon starting on the 25th, as we've been saying, and then 2 weeks exactly after that we'll have the new moon in Aries. So we're going to cover the new moon in Aries in more detail next week, because that will be following. But it's this real portal of, we look at this as a whole period of transformation. So again, touching back on this axis of the relationships axis, really. And so by the time we get to the new moon, 2 weeks after the full moon on the 25th, we're kind of we're still in really strong Aries energy anyway, even throughout all this time. And then the new moon, 2 weeks after this full moon coming up, will be on the Aries new moon, the first new moon of this astrological year. And with it, some amazing impetus and energy and direction for it's setting our intentions, utilizing where we want to be unfolding and creating this new astrological year. So we can again kind of look at it in a transformational sense of what we're kind of shedding and clearing out. This full moon over this next week with the eclipse energy is really like clearing the decks. Anything that is, the last bits of tying up. And we spoke about this last week with the ending of the last astrological year. And this is like the final call, really, for me, I think, to, look at this energy as really clearing the decks. And of course, when we're looking at relationships, we're again remembering that the first and the most important one is always with self. So what are there any skeletons in the closet that want to be cleared? Are there any new patterns that are healthier for us? Our thoughts, our thinking, how we talk to ourselves, our limiting beliefs, all of those kind of areas are up for renewal, because the eclipse energy bringing that transformation is really offering us an opportunity to grow. Because again, going back to that, with the beauty of astrology being the awareness of it and being able to do this dance of co-creation with the cosmos, we've got an opportunity. It's always an opportunity to grow. So anything that's coming up, anything that's hot for you, anything that is, niggling you, we can look at it in a way for our ultimate growth. And we can see how in the ages and times gone by, and even currently, how there can be this fear energy, because these things aren't always easy to deal with. So we want to be managing ourselves and looking after ourselves and each other in the best way we can. Now, we've also got a huge amount of Aries energy generally. So opposite the full moon in Libra, so looking at the chart, I've got the chart here up for the full moon on the 25th. And opposite the moon on its own in Libra is a cluster of planets in Aries. So we've not only got the beginning of Aries season happening now in the new astrological year, but we've also got Mercury, the North Node, we've got the Sun and Chiron all in they're fairly close, actually, fairly close cluster. We can certainly look at their energy as synergized together, because it's close enough to form a real cluster there. And so we've got this stellium of planets in Aries. So it's this real, and you think about the full moon highlighting and illuminating that, so we've got this big dynamic energy that is being called to be seen. So Chiron in Aries is about taking forth energy, direction, action into a way that is looking at our wounds for our highest growth. It's Chiron's the wounded healer, and it shows us how often our deepest wounds are our biggest gifts for transformation and growth, and how we can often support others from the learning from our deepest wounds. So that's going on in Aries. That's given a big activation of impetus energy by Aries. Mercury in Aries, that invites us to think in a more dynamic way, to be getting projects going, to be communicating. What we want to be mindful of with Aries energy is that, again, we want to get deep, because as we said, Aries energy can have that dynamic, forthright push, which is what we love about Aries energy. It gets things going, it knows how to get things started, but it can be in a rush. So we want to get deep, and we want to make sure that our changes are sustainable. So why we look to the earth signs, that the next sign along, Taurus, to bring in the fixed earth element to be able to, nurture the seeds that we're planting now. So we want to also think about getting deep when we're in Aries energy, because it's quick and it's fast moving and it can be a little bit impatient, actually. So we want to nurture it, and we want to make it sustainable, because this is a really fascinating time and a really fantastic time for getting things going and getting things started. But we want to nurture that, and thinking again about those creations along the way of what we want to bring in for the year ahead, not just the eclipse season and transformation there, but this is a really pivotal time for new beginning energy. And again, we've got a previous podcast that goes into a bit more detail on that. So we've got Chiron, we've talked about Mercury, we've talked about, and of course the Sun in Aries as well. So again, this dynamic time of new beginnings. And with that North node there, it's a call for us to be accessing and aligning with our highest purpose in ourself, because Aries is about the self. So, we again want to get deep and use that in a really positive way. Where are we being called to lead? To step up, to step out, to be brave, to be courageous, to shine. Ultimately, to shine as our authentic self would be really great use of Aries energy. So we've certainly got a huge dose of that at the moment, and the energy and the impetus to do it. So it's a lovely one for really kind of accessing the momentum, the forwards momentum. I think we'll have another song. We're going to have some REM now, and Man on the Moon, very fittingly, with our full moon coming up in Libra on the 25th. Thank you, Django, for playing that one for us.
KindaSound, tuning in for change.
Welcome back to the KindaSound Astrology Show with me, Stella Grace. We're here every Friday at 10, bringing you the latest in the astrological weather and a topic. And we've been touching on eclipse season for transformation today, and hearing some comments as well about how we're riding these energies. And it's not always easy, but as we were just discussing in the break there, it is absolutely about bringing us back into alignment. And we had a comment in from Tammy, and I think it's really, really valid to share that, might not be feeling the dynamic energy of Aries. Actually, there's a lot of that in the sky, but actually we are being called to do what our bodies are asking us to do. And if that means a period of rest before we can then have that energy and that propelling expansion moving forward, that might be what we're needing. Without that, sometimes we can't nurture our seeds and plant and grow our creations and our manifestations without some downtime first. So I think it's really helpful that that's been raised, actually, because it's really about checking in. What am I needing? And we can look at all these different tools and things, but it's about what resonates and what's going to be helpful for us in each day and each moment. So there's a lot going on in the sky. Eclipses and full moons generally are about bringing us into alignment from releasing or from change, and that's why we have this opportunity for transformation. Not always easy at the time, but again, it's trusting in the process and going through it to get to the gold, really, which is on the other side. Now, if all of that wasn't enough, we do have some other aspects going on as well. So we're in the Mercury retrograde shadow now as well. And again, Mercury retrogrades, like eclipses, are something that can be either feared or can be deeply revered. And again, I'm going to look at this on a spectrum of let's push it into what we can utilize from it today. So retrograde energy, when it's actually exact on the 1st of April, it begins on the 1st of April, Mercury retrograde. So we're not actually even there yet, and I'm going to discuss it more next week, but we're in the shadow period, so we can start to feel this more inner workings kind of happening. And this is interesting because there's a lot of Aries dynamic energy, as we've said, but there is also this slowing down with Mercury. And so what that can do, and it's in the sign of Aries, but it's asking us to step into ourselves, step into our power, step into our leading and our bravery, but it's also asking for us to get deep on an inner journey. Because Mercury retrograde, or any time any of the planets go retrograde, it's a call to review, to retrospect, to slow things down, look at the inner process rather than the external process. And of course, again, this really links into, kind of got like some triple whammies going on here, because it links into, Libra full moon is asking us to assess our relationships and how we show up within our relationship with self and all others. And so then Mercury gearing up for its retrograde and now in its shadow period, and energy that we'll be feeling of that is asking us to kind of look within, really, and to look at the processes, the underpinning processes, as well as eclipse season asking us to look at, what we're looking for our next transformation, for our next expansion. So if that wasn't all enough, we have that. We do also have some interesting energy applying. So I'm sorry I can't share screen. I haven't got that. But what I'm looking at here is the chart. I don't know if you can see that in the light. I don't know if it's going to be very good to show you, but that's just very roughly, you can see the outline there. Maybe I'm looking at the full moon, the chart for the full moon. And what we also have going on is Jupiter and Uranus applying. So they're getting closer together towards a conjunction. Actually only 5 degrees apart when the moon is full. So they're getting closer. So what that means is we've also got change coming. So as if all of that transformation energy wasn't enough, we've got Uranus expanding change, which is Uranus, and then being kind of in it together. And actually, I think that's a really lovely way to close the show together today, is that we're in it together. This change that's occurring and all the transformations that's happening, although we're going through we can really go through it, can't we, with these deep energies and with what's going on out there, but actually we're in it together. And we're all going through our own processes, we're all managing various different things, and we're all kind of looking at how we can do, be our next best version of ourselves, and how we can manage different things. And we're all doing that in some way or another, just lifing. So it's a nice way to end the show and remember that we are united. Even in our difference, we're united. And Uranus really reminds us of that, because Uranus is the liberator and the change maker. And that being touched by Jupiter expands. Jupiter also brings a touch of luck and good fortune as well. So Jupiter and Uranus together at this time in Taurus, in a grounded sign, an earth sign, gives us a really nice opportunity for looking at, yes, there's, big change coming. Big change is in our structures, in our lives, but actually it is for the better. It's for a positive means. Jupiter is good fortune, and we're all in that together. So I think it's a really lovely way. We're going to end in a moment with the song Lordy and Team, and I think that's it. We are all on the same team. We're all navigating this stuff and we're all in it together. So I think that's a nice way to end the show. Django, have we got another question in there? I can see something else in the chat, but I can't see what it is.
No worries. We had on Facebook, Michael Ball asked, what does it mean for people born under a full moon? I think that was a little bit earlier, just after the break.
Yeah, I love that. That's really interesting. I was actually born under a full moon. I think it's really interesting. You can find that out quite easily online by putting in your date. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, because if we think about what full moon does, it always illuminates and highlights, and it's at the end of a cycle as well. It's at the peak. So I think we can take some of that on board for our nature, and think about, we're probably people who like to bring awareness to things and like to bring things into fruition. So so I think that's a really good contrast. And if we think about in contrast to the new moon, if someone was born under a new moon, it might be more about their somebody who starts projects at the beginning of cycles rather than kind of brings them to a fruition point or an illumination point. So I hope that's helpful, Michael. Thanks for your question.
Cool. And then let me just scroll up here. We had Cheryl saying, I'm experiencing what can only be described as back labor pains and wanting to hibernate in the warm. And then Spirit Tree said, same here. I've been wrapped up to a tense machine all week.
Wow. Blessed. I think the body is requiring so much extra comfort and nourishment. If we're experiencing that, it's really just going with it and going into that downtime place of deep rest, deep nourishment. And if it means cancelling things, that's how it is. I really feel like as well, this is such a call back to our kind of natural cycles, isn't it? Really listening to the body. What am I needing? Again, it's interesting, it's feminine energy, coming into our feminine energy of really listening to our cycle, of feminine energy for all of us, men or women, because this is something we talked about on another show with Juliette Bryan, who's an amazing lady with much wisdom to share. And we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. We're very much in a masculine energy driven, a toxic masculine energy driven state, really, of the full-time working week. You keep going, you get on with it. And actually, that's not conducive or healthy to our thriving and our well-being. And so when we're feeling low and it's the body asking us to stop, and again, that's very fitting with some of the energies we've talked about today. Mercury retrograde, shadow starting, it's that deep inquiry, inner reflection. If that requires deep rest, then cancel it. We want to listen to ourselves, don't we, and give ourselves what we're needing. I think it's the kindest thing we can do, and of course that reflects out to others as well. We role model that to our families and friends, and our wellness ripples out to the collective as well. So again, we're in it together, we really are.
Beautiful. I think that's all for now.
Sending Cheryl and Tammy much love, and everyone much love, actually. And thank you, Django. It's nice to hear a bit more of your voice in the show as well, Django.
No problem. We've also got Sarah White on Facebook. Welcome. Yeah, thank you to everyone who's joined us. Lovely.
Thank you. Great to hear from you, and we look forward to seeing you again next week at 10.
Super. And here is Lord with Team.